So when we talk about ISO, we're talking about the body of your camera now. So we're off the lens for this part and we're into the body.
Okay.
So this is about how you tell the camera to be sensitive to light. So if you want it to be really sensitive to light, you can press a button and tell it to do that.
Okay.
If you want it to be a little bit sensitive to light, you can tell it to do that. And if you want it to be somewhere in the middle, you can tell it to do that. So you have actually a lot of control with that now in a way we didn't have with film.
But why would we want to tell the camera to be sensitive to light?
Okay, so we, as part of the 7-step shoot flow, the very first thing we do is assess the light. Okay, so I've taken a step forward and gone to point 2 in the guide, which is about ISO. So it relates to after you've assessed the light you're going to shoot in, you then pick an ISO setting that will match that reasonably.
Right. Okay.
So you don't have to know scientifically, oh, it's got to be this particular number for this particular kind of light, and if it's like holding up a wet finger to the air to test the wind, it's not that kind of precise setting. It's just, I actually say it's like, broadly speaking, one of 3 main choices. So you say, am I shooting in a bright sunny day, or am I shooting in a kind of medium light day, or am I in a dark light setting? So you can imagine if we went up into the attic in this building, we wouldn't have many lights in this building up there, would we? We'd open it up and there might be a little small light cracks coming in through gaps in the roof or whatever, but we wouldn't have lots of light up there.
No.
So therefore we need to tell the camera, because I'm in a dark light situation, I need to raise the ISO. I need to make the camera more sensitive to light to compensate for that.
So raise ISO.
Yeah.
And so obviously the opposite would be in a bright situation, you lower the ISO.
That's right. So if you've got lots of light, you can imagine if you go out on the beach and you're like, oh, it's bright, I need my sunnies.
Yeah.
That's your human way of saying, stop the light. I don't need to be so sensitive to light because the light's really bright. So it's like that you're the camera there. You tell the camera, don't be so sensitive to light because we've already got a lot of light.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and then the middle ground is on a day like today, we've got, just overcast grey light in the middle of the day. And so then we're in the middle range there.
Okay.
So the question is, what kind of settings do you use? What sort of buttons am I pressing here?
And what are the ranges?
Yeah, exactly. So let's just look at that a little bit closer. You can imagine if you had a microscope and you looked in deeply right into the microscopic level with the pixels, you can imagine on a slow ISO that the pixels themselves would be teeny weeny and packed in close together, meaning it would take a long time for the light to get in there and do its work.
Right.
Versus if you had a fast ISO setting, you can imagine the pixels are bigger individually and further apart from one another. So this is not a scientific representation of what's going on, but I have a film background in photography, and this is how I learned to visualise the difference between a slow and fast film. In those days it was about the film itself. Now it's about the camera's sensitivity to light. And of course it's recorded with the sensor on the back of the camera. So is that making sense as a visual analogy for you?
Yeah.
So have you heard this term called digital noise?
Nope.
No? Or pixelation?
Yes, I know that.
Yeah. So in amateur photography land, there seems to be a lot of focus on, I can't use a high ISO because I might get a pixelated image. And so people stay away from using the faster settings because they think that there's going to be an erosion of quality in their photo. The reality is that is true, but I would encourage you to not worry about that. So there are many times when I photograph for my professional work and I use the fast ISO because that's appropriate for the situation I'm photographing.
Okay.
And I've never had a client yet say to me, oh, what ISO did you shoot that on? Oh, I'm sorry, that was too fast for my liking. They've never complained about the dottiness of the picture around this pixelation question.
Okay.
So in your learning curve going forward from here on in, I would encourage you to just assess the light and pick the ISO based on the setting you have. If you're natural light shooting and you're not using flash, which I assume you are doing, and just accept the pixelation that might come up with your pictures as you go faster in your ISO settings. And then when you get
Okay.
onto the computer, you'll start to see where that all slots in. So
Okay.
for the time being, don't worry about it. Just get on and shoot and start to see where that all fits in later as you go into post-production, which is later.
Okay.
Okay, so the question is, what numbers? What are we doing with it numerically? What are the numbers that you use for this? What button do I use, and how do the numbers work out for that? So going forward from here, I talk about lamp post numbers, and these are numbers that you want to try to put to memory. They're like landmark numbers.
Okay.
So the first set of numbers are the options you can use for ISO. So the typical ones that you'll be thinking about using every time you shoot will be these ones. So it goes from 100 to 200 to 400, 800, let's say 1600, 3200, okay? So you've got your range there, and they're in the guide here as well. I've even put 50 in there. Typically it tends to be 100 going forward now, I'm noticing.
So fast is this?
Yeah, exactly. So the smaller the number, the slower the ISO, which means the smaller the number, the slower the camera will respond to light,
Okay.
the less sensitive it is to light.
Okay. Okay. So on a bright day, we would be sitting down at 100 to 200.
Yep, great.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then on a dark day, we would be putting the ISO somewhere up to like 1600.
Yeah. So it's like being on a seesaw.
Yep.
Photography is this land of opposites.
Okay.
And if you don't have much light down here, not much light, means you have to jack up the ISO. More light, you have to compensate for less light, more ISO. So the swing goes that way, the seesaw goes that way. Versus if you have lots of light, then you don't need much ISO at all, low setting.
Okay.
And then you'll have the middle ground. So if you have medium light like we have today, then it will be a medium setting on your ISO.
Okay.
So when you first start, every time you shoot, that's just your starting point. That's my starting point, is do I have a lot of light, medium light, not much light?
Okay.
And then you start narrowing it in and becoming more specific after that. But
Okay.
to begin with, you just go broadly. Lots of light, medium light, not much light. And then you pick your ISO setting based on that.
Okay. So today you said it's medium, so we'd be looking at setting it around 400 or 800.
Yeah, we'll find out. I'm in that range here. I'm thinking it's going to be in there somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll notice, Jules, that they go by doubling and halving in value. So you've got ISO, let's say 100 to 200.
Yep.
Then you go 200 to 400, 400 to 800, 800 and so on.
Yeah.
So you know numerically, oh, that's nice and easy. I can get my head around that the bigger the number, the faster it goes. And it's a doubling and halving in value numerically. But that actually means a doubling and halving in terms of its sensitivity to light. It'll be twice as sensitive to light at ISO 800 as if it was at 400.
Yep.
So have you heard a term called a stop? Does that sound familiar to you?
A stop.
A stop.
Well, I know the word stop, but not in regard to cameras.
Right. So that's part of the language for photography. So going forward, you want to start thinking about stops.
Okay.
All right.
All right. But it's the new page, right?
So the term stop is the way we explain the doubling and halving. So if I
Okay.
said to you, if I looked at your photo and it was shot at ISO 400, and I said to you, make it one stop faster, what do you reckon I might mean?
800.
Yeah, exactly. So one stop faster equals ISO 800. Beautiful.
So one stop faster than 400 equals 800.
Excellent.
One stop faster than 100 would be 200. And then you'd say one stop slower. Is it
Yep,
the reverse?
slower.
So one
Yep.
one stop slower.
That's right.
So if you turn around to me and say, right, we're at 800, but you're not happy with it, you'd say one stop slower to 400.
Yeah, so if you were getting a bright result and you wanted to slow the camera down and make it less sensitive to light, you might drop it by one stop to ISO 400.
Okay.
Yep,
Yep.
great.
Good.
So the question is, how do you control this on your camera? So
Good
you know
question.
the theory now. Now you need to know how to actually control that by itself on your camera.
Okay.
Where do you control ISO on your camera? Because it will be different on your camera to my camera to
Okay.
anybody else's. So what we'll look for is literally here I've got an ISO symbol there. So I press that button.
Now, I've got mine up here. Is that the button?
Yes, give that a try.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you've got the display there. So at the moment your camera is set to ISO 200.
Yep. Oh, so if I press it
And
again.
then it gives you that little
Oh, hang on
orange.
a second. If I press it again, yeah. So if we set it at 400 for the moment, and then press set, okay, and it's done it.
Yep, so go back a step for me.
Go back.
So what you want to do is identify the range that you've got. So you know actually this camera body goes from ISO 100
Oh,
to,
sorry.
that's all right, to ISO 12,800. So that's quite fast. Okay. This camera, this Nikon,
So in a dark
Yeah.
setting, if it was pitch black outside, you
Yes.
would turn it to 12. You could probably, on this camera, you could turn it right up to 1200.
yep, set it right to the top.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
got
she
it.
just had she just had an aha moment. I saw that. The little
did.
glint went. Oh, good.
Got
Okay,
it.
so on this one we go here, ISO, on the Nikon. So I hold that with my thumb, and then at the top the display shows at ISO 2000. Oops, that one. So I do it with the thumb. So I just actually turn it with that one there. So then I can go through and see what this camera has. So it goes to low settings, and then it starts from 100, and it's got a couple of numbers along the way, and then it goes to 200, and then to 400, and so on. So I've actually got a lot of options there. So you see how I've actually got quite a range from ISO 100 to 6400, and then I can go into high as well. So the range there is quite a lot. And then on this camera, what I can do is pick numbers between the lamppost numbers. Remember I talked about the lamppost numbers? Where I said...
Between 400 and 800?
Yeah, so like here we want to memorise these big ones, the main ones. And I call them lamppost numbers because if you imagine walking down a street and you've got a lamppost and then a house outside the house and then the lamppost outside the house, and then it takes you 3 houses down the street to get to the next lamppost. So it's quite a ways down the street to get to the next lamppost. But what if you just wanted to go next door? So you just wanted to change the camera setting a little bit, not a whole stop, which is what the lamppost number is. It's a long way down the street to change it to the next stop, the next whole stop.
Okay.
So this camera shows with ISO that actually I have that finer control. So if I go from ISO 100 to ISO 200, that way, so I go click, click, lamppost. Did you see that?
Yep.
So there, I go from ISO 100, I go, sorry, wrong way. It goes to ISO 125, to ISO 160, and then ISO 200. So there's my big one. There's my lamppost numbers.
Yep.
That's a whole stop, one stop, which is a lot.
Yep.
It's a doubling of value. But what if I just want a little bit of control? Well, then I might do a third there, to a third there, to a third there. So the 3/3 make the whole stop.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yep, it does.
Yeah. So we'll start to see that show up later on as well. So I thought I'd raise it now because my camera has those numbers in between the numbers along the way.
Okay.
So some cameras will be built like yours with the whole lamppost numbers, and some cameras will be built with the numbers in between the numbers, the thirds of stops.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So I'm noticing some cameras have got the whole ones just like yours, and then some have the extra numbers as well, like
Okay.
this one.
Okay.
So
But it shouldn't make any difference though. Like, So a professional photographer would naturally go out and purchase a camera that has the third and a third and a third
Yes.
to give them much more. But for somebody like me, it'll work. I will get just as good a result with just the lampposts.
Yep, so for somebody like you with a lower budget, that might be one of the compromising factors, is less finer control with the ISO settings.
Okay.
So you would pay less money for that body with that limitation to it,
Okay.
as you would for this body that gives you that fuller range.
Okay.
So that could be a deciding factor if you were buying a camera. Do I have finer control with the ISO settings, or am I working only with whole stops on the ISO?
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Got it.
groovy.
And so it's the first thing you do. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to take photos of my kids, and the first thing I do, I'm going to gauge light, dark, medium, and then go in and change my ISO.
Beautiful. So
Yeah.
you're already 2 steps down on the 7-step shoot flow now.
Okay.
So you've assessed the light and then you've picked your ISO. So Jules, this is something you do every time you shoot.
Okay.
So you
ISO.
can't say, oh, I'll just skip this bit. Because then if you do, it means you'll use the setting on your ISO from last time you were shooting.
Okay.
So if you were at a nighttime event last time you were photographing and you were up at ISO 6400, and then today it's a much brighter day, and by that window you actually might have quite a lot of light there. But if you leave it on ISO 6400, it's going to be like going out to the beach and needing sunglasses. It's going to be, the camera will be too sensitive for the light that you're giving it.
Okay.
So you need to compensate. You need to slow the camera down because there's already a lot of light coming in.
Okay. What happens in a scenario when you're like shooting indoors? So you've got like it's nighttime, but you're inside in an office area or something like that, for instance. So you've got natural light,
Yep.
but you wouldn't call it bright because it's not the bright sunlight, but it's not dark either. So would that just be classified as a medium, or you know how indoor fluorescent lights do lots of different weird things with the quality of the light?
So it might be on the lower side of medium. So therefore you might need a higher ISO.
Okay.
So you might not go as far as 6400, you might go to ISO 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, so remember you've got your range there. So go back on your range. You've got from 100 up to 6400.
So if I was taking a shot indoors indoors at night time, it wouldn't be medium. I would, even though it's got artificial light, you would do it at a higher level.
Yeah, so we're not assessing artificial lighting against natural lighting, meaning the sun.
Okay.
Light is light. And anything that's a constant light source is
Yep.
the light that we're photographing.
Right.
It doesn't matter about the type of light source that it is.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. Cool. Okay. Okay, so
For this purpose, it doesn't matter.
so you would put it up to the higher ISO because you're indoors. It's not as strong. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
But at the same time, you could be inside and then all the lights are on and they're at 100 watts and it's pumping with lots of light.
Yeah.
Even though it's nighttime outside, doesn't matter. In here with those lights, I've got lots of light, so therefore
Okay.
I can come down a bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it. Good.
Beautiful. So are there any final questions about ISO?
No, I'm good on ISO. I'm very excited about the fact that now I know what to do with my camera. I go outside and I can just go, oh, yep, and amazing.